As you know, winter was unusually cruel this year, but with luck, spring will soon have mercy on us. Joining us now to talk about making a blueprint for a green garden is Eliza Fournier of the Chicago Botanic Garden. And Eliza, welcome back, and we hope the winter is behind us. But let's talk about winter first, because it was a really long winter. How resilient is a typical backyard to the ravages that winter can bring, particularly one that we just had?
Well, if everyone has been paying attention to these segments you and I have been doing over the years, they should have no problems whatsoever.
Okay, but you know what? Having done these segments, I still had some personal issues, and I took some pictures of my backyard this morning, and I want to show you a couple things and ask you, what did I do wrong, and what is there any hope for? You know, first of all, I mean, we see these evergreens, and I go jogging in the neighborhood, and a lot of people have these, and that rusty stuff. What caused that? What did I do wrong, and how can I fix it?
So that's a lovely thing called winter burn, and it's evergreens are particularly susceptible to it because they're green. You know, so during the winter, they're still, when it warms up, they're still, water is evaporating out of their needles still, whereas the deciduous trees don't have any leaves for the water to evaporate out of. So they're particularly susceptible to drying out. And that's what we're seeing there.
So should I have watered longer into the fall? Was it just a matter of it was going to happen no matter what because of the extremity of the temperatures?
That's one suggestion. Watering more in the fall, giving them a really good drink in the fall is one suggestion to prevent it. But a lot of times if we just get this tough winter like this, it's just going to happen anyways.
So are those two evergreens going to bounce back, do you think?
There's a lot of green still on them, so what you can do is just remove the brown spots. Unfortunately, what I would do is wait until things green up, because some of it might bounce back. But if it's still remaining brown, you just remove that with your pruners and go from there.
Okay, and another, I have 3 holly bushes, and look, I mean, green on the bottom and then towards the top.
Well,
not so good. And this one I planted last year, and it's just looking pathetic. It's got maybe just a couple green spots towards the ground.
Oh, tragic. So bad.
I know.
Well, and you can look at the leaves of the holly, and they're even more susceptible than a needle.
Just because more surface?
There's more surface area, so you get more water loss, so it's even more challenging.
And again, was there anything I could have done to it? Could I have wrapped those plants or anything?
People do that. People do all kinds of crazy stuff, only to sometimes find out that it wasn't worth all of the effort. The one thing and I know you didn't do this because you're an expert, but a lot of people
but I'm just a hack. I do my best.
You do your research too, and a lot of people you'll get a holly or you'll get a cypress for a holiday gift maybe, or as a holiday decoration, and then you wait till spring and you plant it out. And a lot of those are not cultivars that are suited for our environment, and a lot of us have actually gotten a little bit risky with the plants that we've been planting in our garden because of the weather that we've had the last 2 winters. So we've maybe dipped our toes into those zone 6 plants, maybe even zone 7, and that's where you're going to see a lot of the more damage and death.
Because the Chicago area is in what zone?
5.
It's in 5. All right, good enough. Now, so what should I do with those holly plants? Should I just cut them back? Should I leave them alone a while? What should I do?
Patience is always a virtue when it comes to gardening, especially in spring. I can't tell you how many stories that I've heard of people getting too vigorous with the pruners early, or digging things up and then only to find out maybe, that's just a late bloomer, So it never hurts to wait and just see. But the hollies, the one that was completely brown, I'm sorry, Phil. Diagnosis.
You know what?
Dead.
I'm not going to give up on that one. I'm not going to. I think there's still one. I'll get back to you on that.
Please keep me posted.
I'll tell that holly I saved you from Eliza. All right. How about any special consideration for the soil, given all the salt and everything?
Well, one thing, the best way to deal with the salt is to avoid it altogether. So when you're putting down, like the Botanic Garden, we use a lot of sand instead of salt. It's not going to melt the ice, but it's going to make it less slippery. Because that salt just is so pervasive in the soil, and it's really damaging.
Okay, well let's talk about winter pruning, because you have talked about the importance of keeping your plants in shape. Right now, if people didn't do pruning going into the fall, what tips do you have?
Now is a great time to do pruning. One, you can see the structure. One, you can get out in the garden, and it's 30 degrees instead of negative 30 degrees. So
we'll take it.
That's great, right? Way to be optimistic, right? But the best, so you can see the structure of your tree. You can see what damage was done, whether there were branches broken from the stress of the snow or just damage that happened last year. So that's the first thing you want to do is remove dead and damaged branches. And the best way to see if you have dead branches, you can just use the side of your pruner like this and scrape and see if you see a little bit of green. And if you see a little bit of green, leave it. That has a chance of coming back.
And rule of thumb when you do come across parts of a tree that are clearly dead.
Yes.
In terms of how much pruning you should do.
Get rid of them. They should go, because if they're damaged, they can have badly shaped wounds that can actually help be an entrance point for disease or further damage. But you just want to make sure you use the right tool. So the tool I'm holding right now is a hand pruner, and really the thickest. This is even pushing it. The thickest.
Yeah, I think so. That'd be hard.
This is a little tough. So maybe something more like this would be about the biggest branch you would want to cut with this. For anything bigger than this, you would need a loppers. So like this would be more like a loppers.
What's a loppers?
A loppers is a longer handled
okay,
pruner.
like a little mini saw or something like that.
No, it's still like shaped like this,
really?
but just bigger. So it gives you more. The loppers, they give you the leverage, right? And then for anything bigger than that, like say what I have here on my Blair Witch tomato trellis, then you would need a handsaw.
By the way, when you prune something, do you use a sealant? Because I do. You know, you can buy that pruning sealer. You don't use it?
I don't use a.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't use it. You don't really need it as long as you're making the appropriate cut at the appropriate time. So now is a great time to make it, and you want to make sure that you see the little branch collar. So there's that little kind of wrinkle right where it joins the next branch. Yeah. So you want to leave some of that. So that'll actually help heal the wound better. And you don't want to leave too long of a stump either.
Okay, my use of the sealant probably is just another example of how I tend to overdo things. But let's move on. You brought in some twigs, and you say that right now there's so many, there is just a lot of, there are a lot of twigs in people's yards, but you've come up with a creative use for them.
A couple of creative uses, and so when we throw these into the yard bag or the garbage can, they do not decompose in the landfill. The landfill is not a good place for organic processes like decomposition to happen. So these just will stay in the landfill, just like diapers will. Maybe not as long as diapers, but instead of throwing them away, I don't know, do you ever go on Pinterest for gardening ideas?
I don't.
I saw this idea.
I see. So you have labeled, using these as plant labels, spinach, tomato, lettuce, kale. Very nice.
Kind of cute, right? So all you need to do is take your little, of course, pink knife and just shave a straight part here, and then use a Sharpie and label it.
That's very clever.
Like that.
But you've also embarked on some architecture there. It looks like something out of True Detective, which is a little scary.
A little scary. So my daughter and I created this, collected sticks and created this. This can be in the early season, this can be a sweet pea trellis, and then later in the season it can actually function as a nice trellis for a patio tomato or something like that. You can get bigger with it, and then you don't have all that. Watch, it's
that's actually very charming. Okay, let's talk about starting seeds, because some people enjoy that. Others of us think, oh, that's just so much effort. You have to worry about they're drying up and everything, and are they getting enough light? What's your approach?
Well, I like to, again, reuse and repurpose. So I don't know, many families have a lot of these items around at home. These are just toilet paper rolls. They're very easy to just rip apart and then fold over to create a base, fill with soil, and then you have a beautiful, if you can see the baby, I don't know, he's hiding, he's teeny tiny.
Oh yeah, it is tiny.
He's tiny,
When can you transplant the seedlings from the toilet paper roll to the yard?
Depends on what kind of plant you're growing. So for cool season plants, It's coming up here. It's coming up here. As soon as we can get kind of around the 30s at night, right now we're still in the teens at night. So once we get into the 30s at night, that's a good time. And then for warm season plants like tomatoes and peppers, you want to wait until really that at middle end of May.
Okay, listen, we're almost out of time, but real quickly, indoor plants. What kind of care do they need right now?
Our indoor plants have suffered as much as we have this winter. It's dry, they have heat blowing on them, it's horrible. So if they are looking a little root bound or peaked, you can take them in the shower, give them a good wash down, or even repot them. And this one kind of needs a repotting, but we'll save that for later.
Eliza, thanks as always. Good to see you.
Nice
and
to
I'll
see
keep
you.
you posted on the holly plant as
time
progresses, yes. And you can visit our website for 5 tips for starting your own garden.